Welcome to the Reclamation Point podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Moetown Lee.
Dr. Ed Garnes riding shotgun, dripping these sweet tea ethics very slowly today. It's a lot brewing.
Very slow. It is.
A lot brewing.
Hey, listen, dog. This is crazy. It is. First of all, thank you for tuning in. Shout out to U42, our producer, Yaz. But, boy.
I didn't.
That's the best thing we can say, though.
I had to take a nap for this episode. You know what I'm saying?
It is a lot has been going on, and this in the past week, 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some things. I mean, we had an election. We had silencing some black men and their views. We had some just all kind of craziness. But I think, where do we start? I think we'll start where it ended. Let's start with this. Let's start with the election.
Oh.
Let's start with the election. And many don't know, we had an election in Georgia.
Did we? I don't even know if you would call it that.
Well, we had a nationwide election, and a lot of people were predicting a red wave that didn't really happen. But things got a little emotional. Things got emotional in Georgia. I think a lot of so the gubernatorial election, Brian Kemp, the Republican candidate, the incumbent governor, was reelected. He beat out Sister Stacey Abrams, who ran a gallant effort, but she just couldn't get over the hump. I don't know what's next for Stace, but she couldn't get over the hump. And there were a lot of like council and House spots. I can't believe these idiots reelected Marjorie Taylor Greene. And speaking of idiots, we have a runoff in the Georgia Senate race with Hershel Uncle Ruckus Walker against Reverend Raphael Warnock. So I guess let's start there. Let's start with.
I had something on Abrams that I really wanted to get.
No, that's what we're gonna start. We're gonna start with Abrams, because this is the Reclamation Point podcast, and everything goes back to mental health and the issues. So let's talk about some things that I personally, and we talked about this offline, that I personally had an issue with as it pertains to Stacey Abrams not being elected the governor of Georgia. One issue, major issue I've on social media, and I see the perception is Stacey Abrams did not win because she did not have the support of black men. And the numbers came out today and they prove that to be 100% false. But the perception and how it's viewed in our community becomes reality because people tend to think that black men don't support and won't support the sisters. So let's start there. For me, my personal opinion, I don't think there's some things about Stacey Abrams, and we have to remember, we still live in Georgia. It's still the dirty South, you know what I mean? And sexism and racism reign supreme.
Preach.
And when you look at that, they see Stacey Abrams, and many people, this is not my opinion. We're just talking about it. Mm-hmm. Many people look at Stacey Abrams. They say, you know what, Stacey Abrams, she's a plus size woman. She's very natural. with the locks. She is, and some people would, when you look at society and they say, "Oh, this is not what society looks at, views as attractive." This is society. This isn't us. This isn't our opinion. This is just a broad opinion of, we're thinking as some voters. And then a lot of people tend to think that she speaks for and to just black people, and remember, we live in Georgia. So let's talk about that. Let's just start there.
I mean,
there's a lot of things to know.
I'm glad you gave that qualifier that those are not our opinions, but those are opinions that we have definitely heard about Stacey Abrams. That rap song, Not Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia is not Atlanta.
Not Atlanta.
Georgia is not Atlanta. Georgia is not Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you get in Stacey Abrams is the classic gut bucket, stick to your ribs like grips oppression that we experience in the South. We forget the South wanted slavery. Right. we had a whole war. You know what I'm saying? We had a whole fight. You know what I'm saying? Over we want to still own black people, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the heritage in which we come from. With Stacey Abrams, the cocktail that cocktail of racism and sexism is hard to overcome in the Deep South.
Right.
I think what I have learned from the Stacey Abrams race, I already knew about sexism and racism, but a new strategy has emerged where Kemp and others are publicly denouncing Trump in some ways, but their policies are still Trumpian, right? Mm-hmm. So they're able to distance themselves, but when you look at their policies, they're still about disenfranchisement of other folks, right? And so the governor's house has always been one similar to like the NFL and the quarterback. Like they want the white quarterback to run the team, right?
Right.
Our governor's seat has to be a white man based on history, right? And so that's what people are prone to. I think where the Democrats struggle with messaging, and this has nothing to do with Stacey Abrams and her qualifications, but the Democratic Party, period, is that you have to have messaging that sparks your demographic. And the messaging, I think, that was important, that was a missed opportunity for her campaign, was that she helped turn Georgia blue. Lead with that because churning Georgia blue helps everybody, right? And so as an organizer, her strength is agitation. I look at Stacey Abrams like a Frederick Douglass figure. Like, Frederick Douglass did not hold office, but his abolition, he basically pushed abolition to the point that it became a political movement. Mm-hmm. Stacey Abrams' organizing skills forced conversations to happen in Georgia that never happened. So she got everyone else elected, but folks were not there for her because they could not deal with the fact of a black woman holding a certain position. And so where was the white women showing up for Stacey Abrams?
I was going to get on that. I was going to talk about that.
So if we're going to talk about someone who abandoned Stacey Abrams, it was the white women that benefited from Georgia turning blue.
And that's the thing, and I'm glad you brought that up because that segues into what one of the other points about this election that I wanted to discuss, the divide and the blame, to point fingers at black men not supporting the sisters when that's not what the numbers show. You know what I mean? The numbers show that the brothers in Georgia came out and voted far outpaced the rest of the country. Yeah. And supported. Now, you just said something that I have to address. For the life of me, I don't understand how white women choose to vote. I don't understand when we talk about the suppression and the oppression of people, when we talk about the uprising femininity and rights and everything, I don't understand how white women continue to vote against their own personal rights and needs to to continue to support and vote along party lines. Like when we talk about, because one of the most important things that was basically on this ballot, was Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
You could talk about everything else. You could talk about inflation. I mean, let's be real. When we talk about inflation and things like that, it's a global pandemic. Like globally, inflation is up.
Yeah.
There's no politician that can control that. It's just natural nature of the beast, right? But when we talk about Roe versus Wade, we talk about voter suppression, we talk about religious rights and all of these things. I don't understand it.
Well, the reason why you don't understand it is that racism and oppression is irrational, right? So when you think about how whiteness is constructed, whiteness has to other folks, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So if you are pitted against, if we are pitted as enemies, we can't have black people in power, then you will vote against your self-interest to preserve white supremacy and racism, because you are used to that conception, because proximity to power is what gets people in trouble. Black folks, white folks, whoever. Proximity to power is very dangerous because it is seductive. And so it is better a lot of times for some people to see a face that looks like them than to have someone that does not, even if it works against their self-interest. That's why rural Georgia tends to consistently vote against their self-interest, because it's the seduction of white supremacy and the seduction of oppression. At least I have this whiteness to fall back on, even when my money is low.
It's freaking ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is asinine to me. I just don't. I will never begin to understand it. But I also feel like when you talk about the Steve Manstad and go deeper, I have a problem with us, with black people, when we talk about civil rights, when we talk about equality, we talk about the feminist movement. Those were all movements pushed by African American people. Right? They were all started to push by African American people. We allowed other people to join the fight, and the fight has been hijacked. And then our demands and our needs have been put to the back burner because we have this need to accept and want to include everyone else on the fight. I look at the feminist movement. I think that, I applaud the sisters for starting it and pushing it and wanting these rights and fighting against oppressive behavior of masculinity. But then once you included these other people, you know what I mean? I feel like their movement has been hijacked. And if you look, and just like with this election, it continue.
Yeah, to get co-opted. I mean, that's why Alice Walker and other sisters, started the womenist movement, so it could not be co-opted and still be about black women's liberation.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Reverend Raphael Warnock versus Hershel Walker. Now, this morning, I'm up fairly early, and I'm on Twitter. And I'm seeing these posts, these evangelicals, these Christians, and they're talking about why they didn't vote for Raphael Warnock. And they saying, and I had time this morning. I had time for a Twitter debate.
Okay. So
I seen this person, and he says, this election, voting for Hershel proves that Christians will not allow liberals to hijack their movement, to hijack their rights, and continue to murder children. He was talking about abortion. Mm-hmm. Let's get back to faith, is what he said.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm like, All right, cool. I got time today. And I said, by Christians, don't you mean white? He said, no, I mean Christians. Don't try to change my words. And I said, so by Christians, you're talking about Hershel Walker? He said, yeah. I said, wait a minute. We on one side, we have a reverend, a Christian reverend.
Exactly. Who leads with his Christianity.
Right. And your beef with him is that he's pro-choice. Okay. All right. That's what you believe in. On the other side, we have a person who, that we know of, has paid for 4 abortions. Has 4 or 5 illegitimate children. Threatened to kill his wife. Threatened to kill his girlfriend. Amongst all these other things. He said, that's the problem with liberals. They don't believe in Christianity and the right to forgive. People make mistakes. And once they ask for forgiveness, I said, and I quote, since I have time to actually talk to you about this morning, when has Hershel Walker ever admitted he was wrong? Said, as a matter of fact, he denied every time there's been an allegation or something. He's denied it every time. Even when it's been proven that he's lying, he never said, I'm wrong and I'm asking you for forgiveness. He said, but what about Warnock and Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, who are not on the ballot in Georgia, right? And so I say all this to say, and this isn't to make this isn't to dog any race or religion or choice. But again, I don't understand how you are so tied to a religion to where everything that you actually are saying you believe in, this person contradicts it. But you're still using religion as the basis.
But it doesn't make sense because Walker fulfills some very deep-seated and deeply needed stereotypes that allows people to look past it. So one of the stereotypes that is prevalent for black men is what? Sports. Mm-hmm. Former athlete. Check that box. What else? What other stereotype does he fulfill? He's violent. How in history have we settled our problems? With violence. Violence is connected to toxic masculinity, which that party seems to be down with. So you got to have a person that plays sports. That's a stereotype. Is violent. Another perpetuated stereotype of black men is that absent father, right? So because he fulfills 3 major stereotypes.
He kicking it.
Because he fulfills these 3 major stereotypes of black men, people are willing to support it, right? Because if you support Warnock, you are conceding that black men are intelligent, black men are capable of moving the nation, black men are capable of productive thought, black men have faith and are deeply Christian. And so in order to vote for Hershel Walker, you are voting for the perpetuation of black male stereotypes. If we promote Warnock, that is not the image of black men that white folks are comfortable with.
And let's stop right there, because right there, and what? You
need a caricature. You know what I'm saying? Because everyone is supposed to be like Hershel Walker. They want you dumb, singing and dancing and pushing the ball.
And this is why I wanted to pause it right there.
Go ahead.
Because this is the Reclamation Point podcast, and we talk about mental health, and we talk about black men and mental health. That is our focus. So I want to talk to some black men directly as it relates to what you just said, right? To those points of what you just said. I actually am seeing black men talk in support of Hershel Walker.
Yes.
And those points are exactly why, as a black man, I cannot believe that we continue to perpetrate that perpetuate, or anybody else would support Hershel Walker, because he perpetuates the exact negative stereotypes of black men in our community. We have a bunch of bastard kids running around. We're not fathers to our child. We're violent. All we do, we're ignorant. We're illiterate. All we know how to do is rap, sing, and run that ball, nigga.
Well, it's once again the proximity to power from a psychological perspective, where we suffer as black people, and black men are a part of this as well. We are seduced by the validation of white supremacy. So proximity to power lets you forget that these are the same people that are forecasting our demise, right? So psychologically, as a black person, you have stepped outside of the black psychological things that are going to save you and start to endorse very Eurocentric value systems, right? And so when you develop a Eurocentric value system, it is easy to support Hershel Walker because you have denied yourself. So we're always, Dr. Naeem Akbar talks about the alien self, where you disassociate with black culture and totally embrace Western world ideology. That's the psychological premise behind what happens. Because once I get you to deny your blackness and put another culture above yourself, it influences your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. And so people are behaving in ways that go against very deep-rooted black values. And so once you get a person to change their values, you can get them to do anything.
And it is beyond asinine, as 10, as 11, as beyond it to me as it pertains to the election process and how black men are perceived, how black men are quick to negate some of these things, especially in Hershel Walker. Now there's some things about Senator Warnock that I personally don't like that he did in his campaign. I personally, as a black man, one thing I would always say when you look at President Obama, he exuded class, but he also showed strength. You know what I mean? When he, and at some point during this campaign, I personally don't think that Warnock exuded strength and leadership.
Passivity. He's passive. Passivity. You know what I'm saying?
When you're in that ring, everybody, the election is a fight.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. The election is a fight. Everything up to election day is all pre-fight semantics.
Yeah.
When you're debating, it's just like that weigh-in, when it's the big stare down. And election is a fight. And one thing, like Floyd Mayweather or not, he was the number one box office attraction, and because he knew how to sell a fight. Right?
Not more than Muhammad Ali, but I get what you're saying.
I mean, just box office. Like I'm just saying, He I'm not saying he was better. I'm saying he did the numbers.
Yeah.
The reason he did the numbers, whether you like him or not, you either showed up to see him win or you showed up to see him lose. But all the pre-fight joint, he letting you know, like all this, blah, 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 blah. He was charismatic. He's showing you, like, when he had to stare down, he never once led on and I'm fighting a good dude. He got a chance to win. You've never heard of Floyd say that. Like, man, I'm going to demolish this dude. And when you look at that in the political form, when I was so upset watching the debate, when you had Hershel Walker on that stage attacking you and saying all this, you didn't go at him.
Yeah.
You didn't go at him. And some people be like, oh, he can't do it. He's a reverend. He showed class. Some people looked at that like a weakness. You have to be a leader. You have to be a leader, and you have to show that backbone. You love Ellison. That's your heart.
Mm-hmm.
But if Ellison does not view you as the leader of your household, you and Ellison at home and your wife is gone, you have to call her all the time and be like, can you talk to him? Because he ain't listening to me.
Gotcha.
You done lost your household.
All right.
You have to, you're extremely compassionate. You're extremely loving. But sometimes you're going to have to discipline Ellison.
Yeah, because he think I'm Mr. Fun Time, so I know what you're saying. But, I think with Warnock, we believe where the Democratic Party suffers, and I have no dog in whatever fight. You know what I'm saying? I'm for what's right, okay? If you the yellow party and you down with black folks and certain rights, hey, I might vote for you. So I have allegiance to no party. But what the Democrats in Warnock don't understand, you are fighting a beast without a conscience, right? Passivity and those things work when a person has a conscience, when a person can affirm your humanity, and we just agree to disagree. These are not one of those fights. Sometimes you have to let the truth reign. And where I had a problem, it was when he was asked directly some questions about reparations, how he treated that particular brother. After the white people was all in his face, the brother say, "What about reparations?" They call it, it's like the police snatched this brother up. And then also, your answer cannot be, I think that the option is clear. If the option was clear, we wouldn't even have a Hershel Walker running. And so you can go for the jugular in a dignified way. You ain't got to cuss. You ain't got to be violent. But there are certain truths that have to be told, because when people do not know you're going to get in there and fight, then the other side looks attractive.
And people also, with Hershel Walker, God, I had to take a breath because you got to give him credit. They know where he stands.
Messaging. Their messaging is consistent.
After that debate, I didn't know where Warnock stood. He was very middle ground when they asked him would he vote with Biden in certain issues. He didn't answer it.
My dad, when he coached me in basketball, would say, you play the game to win, not to lose. And the Democratic Party plays not to lose. They don't pay to win. You got to win.
And that is the thing. As black men, I think that we can lead. We can lead gracefully. We can show strength. We can show power. We have to understand. And I get it. I get the weight that he bears as far as a black man. But you gotta play to win. You know this race is extremely important for everybody who. And just to go, all right, we're talking about the election and we'll get off of that, but just to talk about some of the personal things that I've seen as it pertains to this election. I've seen a lot of people post pre and post election be so black that they feel like their vote don't matter. Mm-hmm. And it makes no sense. And they talk about all the reasons why you shouldn't vote and you shouldn't play a part. And I think that is the most ignorant-ish that I ever seen, because you have to, like, your vote does matter. Your voice does matter. Even if you feel like there's no dog in the fight, you get in the fight and you create a candidate and get him in the fight.
Exactly.
But you can't sit on the sidelines and continue to comment and not do anything but complain and comment. I seen some of the brothers, and I'm not going to call out any names, but probably when they see this, they'll know that I've read their posts that talk about, Democrats and Republicans, they all the same. So what you do, you need to worry about your house. How can you worry about your house and not pay attention to what's going on in society?
We have all, is sometimes as black people forgotten that we need each other. And like I said, the proximity to white power is so seductive that we're willing to throw each other under the bus when the scariest thing to America is the unification of people that are marginalized and oppressed. And how in this, there's several ways to skin a cat. Voting is one of them. But if voting was not important to shaping our nation, why is there such a concerted effort to dismantle it?
Exactly.
And I thought about a Frederick Douglass quote. Shout out to Frederick Douglass High School. But Frederick Douglass talked about the 3 boxes that are important: the ballot box, the cartridge box, meaning the right to bear arms, and the jury box. In America, those 3 boxes determine our lot. And we have to fight for the protections of those.
And that is the perfect way to segue into something else that I wanted to talk to when you talk about suppression, right? When you talk about suppression information, voter suppression, and why it's important that we play a part. Kyrie Irving.
Ugh. Let me take 2 swigs. I done had so many Kyrie debates. I'm nauseous at this point, but let's get into it.
Kyrie Irving and him and other brothers' voices being suppressed based on their views. Now, for many people who don't know or been sleeping under a rock, Kyrie Irving is a basketball player. He's actually one of the most elite basketball players, and has been for the past 10 years. Kyrie Irving is still fairly young, but he's won championships. He's played with some of the best players in the world, but in recent years, Kyrie has taken on a religion, Hebrew Israelites.
Has he come out and said that? Or
I don't think he came out and said it publicly, but I think a lot of his views, I can confidently say that
are aligned with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, that's his choice. So a lot of things in the past few years, I think that when it comes to the vaccination and other things, I think that Kyrie has been wrongly convicted of having convictions.
Okay. I like that.
His personal views, his religious beliefs that he has the right in America to have.
Supposedly. Allegedly.
And he believes certain things to be true. Right? Based on what he studied. Why is it okay for everyone else to have those views, but not Kyrie as a black man? Now, we talk about what I'm talking about. I mean, they ostracize him for not taking the vaccination because they say he wasn't a team player, but his beliefs were more important than the team. Like, you know what I mean? That's your job. You're only doing that job for a certain amount of time. This job can cut you. You can be hurt. This job will leave. Your beliefs is going to be there. You know? So why is it okay for you to have your beliefs and, but not him? Secondly, of course, not more importantly, but more recently, he posted a documentary titled Hebrews to Negroes. Now, I saw the uproar. I had no idea about the documentary, right? I knew about the Hebrew Israelites. I have personal friends who study Hebrew Israelite, their religion, their beliefs. I have no problem with it, right? But I didn't watch the documentary, and I seen immediately people ran and said Kyrie was anti-Semitic. So I took a couple days. I found the documentary the other day, and I watched it in its entirety. And I was like, what are people upset about? Right? I watched it, and I'm like, okay, The brothers on the corner, some of the people I know who have been talking the exact same thing for years. Now, whether you believe that the Israelis or the European Jews or the people from Israel are the true Jews, not true Jews, I'm not going to be a Holocaust denier. It truly happened.
Yeah.
What people may believe and predicate it, if you look at historically, if you look at Hitler believed that they were not the true Jews and why he was pushing to oppress them and murder them. It was a tragedy. Let's make no mistake. Murdering and the mass murders of a people is wrong. But I also want to point out that historically, if everybody came from a black man, it said in the King James Version of the Bible, the description of Jesus is Jesus was a Jew. Basically, Jesus was a person of color, whether you believe he's white, whether you believe he's Asian, Middle Eastern, whatever it is. Clearly, Jesus was a person of color, based on the Bible. If Jesus was a person of color and Jesus was a Jew, that means Kyrie Irving and his logic of black men or people of color being the true Jews. Now, this isn't about that, but I would just say, being on a tangent.
Yeah, I would say this. I believe that that black folks and our African ancestors are the original people. I just stop there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's how I look at things. But there are several things to be had. One of the great no-nos in America is even the perception of being anti-Semitic. And so whenever you get into that particular language, especially when you are an employee, and we know who runs the NBA, right? There are certain things in being a truth teller that in certain positions you are not allowed to say. And so in the Kyrie situation, Kyrie's belief system, what I see is a person struggling with an identity crisis. My dad and other elders would say a little learning is a dangerous thing. I see someone in the public eye struggling to embrace a black identity that for whatever reason they might have rejected before. But certain things have happened to this brother to get him more centered from an African-centered perspective. And when you are searching and you are searching for your identity, you make mistakes. I think I see a person struggling with identity issues, and I see a person being arrogant in that particular struggle to the point that people who want to support him frown upon that because of the arrogance, right? One of the things that you have to approach knowledge with is a sense of humility. And in some instances, he has lacked humility. In some instances, he has not. I think what it demonstrates, what it demonstrates with Kyrie, proximity to power and money is not enough. Like for so long, we have been pushing millions and we have been pushing economic viability as the way to power in America. It doesn't mean anything because we don't own anything or have certain powers or liberties, right? And so in this situation, you see a man's liberty being threatened because he has no power. So just imagine the psychosis this man is going through because he has had these millions. He has been a poster boy for the NBA for years. And now in the midst of an identity crisis, he's been thrown to the wolves, right? So that's what I see in the Kyrie situation. And then also from a collective bargaining agreement standpoint, owners have certain powers that are relegated by the CBA. Anyone who is an employer cannot then change those collective bargaining agreement rules to specifically go after this brother, right? And so what we have to understand, do I support everything that Kyrie does? No. I think he should apologize. Sometimes you have to apologize about being misinterpreted. You know what I'm saying?
Actually, but that's the thing. and that's the problem. I think he did apologize.
He did.
But now they have this whole list of things that they think that he should.
And
that's asinine. I wouldn't do it personally.
Yeah,
I'm not.
That's
I
the
would never
problem.
play again
That's where I enter the fight. All the rest of the stuff we can debate. For where I enter the fight is to create things outside of the collective bargaining agreement and to set things specifically because he is a black man speaking out. That's where I have a problem. And what we don't realize when we call for the censorship of others, we are calling for the censorship of ourselves.
My thing is this. Why? First of all, knowledge and information is a powerful tool and a powerful key to progression, right? How come you jump out there and say it's anti-Semitic and this and this, but how come you won't, instead of you haven't viewed it, you haven't seen it, you just immediately make comments, but in every other facet of life and beliefs, they tell you to go study and go do this and find the information and read the information and do it. I think it's a suppression of information. Like they're suppressing Kyrie based on they don't want people to see this and get any ideas, right? But any other facets of life, these people say things. We look at this whole MAGA America and these people are taking Trump's words and now they're going to beat up Nancy Pelosi's husband. They're trying to kidnap governors and all of this.
When
you have a bigger problem with Kyrie Irving putting out information on his beliefs than you are all these other people in the United States, and they taking action.
That's the American way. Power and privilege in America rules, and we know who has power and privilege in America.
And then you have all the other brothers out here like, oh man, y'all ain't seen it, so you haven't seen the documentary. You could be, I respect Durant. He was like, man, I just want to play basketball. Okay, cool. Everybody else like, man, Kyrie. Basically, and there's 90% of the things that LeBron does off the court, I support. You know, he's a positive black man, family man, all of these things. I had a problem with his comments as it pertains to Kyrie, and he ran and took the picture with Jewish people. I'm like, hey, dog, Kyrie came to your defense when they told you to shut up and dribble. Basically, like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing here.
Capital corrupts character constantly. In America, capital corrupts character constantly. When black people find themselves in compromising positions where their capital will be messed with, you see different politics happen because we have been taught as black people in America that capital is freedom. Money is not power. We don't have true access to power. So whenever a black person's capital is compromised, their politics change.
Right. And a major issue I have with it in its entirety is, as black people, like you said, and it's essentially black men, they're told you don't have an opinion unless I give you one, nigga. And then other people fall in line. Like other brothers, like we are so quick to discredit and comment on and take up fights against our own brothers and sisters for somebody else, instead of like in the defense. We used to have a sense of community to where we defend this, to where we defend.
Like I said, capital is corruption. What we're seeing is a value system that is very Western world that says greed and capital is the American way. That is the key to happiness, right? When you adopt your value system, you are turning your back on progressive value systems that have gotten us through. You know, what if all of our people throughout history was like, you know what, I'm about to get this change, forget freedom. I'm about to get this change, forget my grandfather. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to get this change, forget the people coming after me, right? And so what happens is that we are in a crisis of values. We are trying to seek validation from our oppressor and have Western world values of fame and success, and then trying to reconcile not getting a piece of the pie as black people, which creates this identity crisis that we're constantly fighting, right? And so because it's more psychological and we don't talk about the psychological impact of being in a system that forecasts your demise, with the right mindset and a black psychological orientation that's based on a strength-based orientation, right? We could have another NBA tomorrow. But you have to have the mindset and the belief system that and the creative imagination to say we can create our own. But once again, the proximity to power is so seductive that we're willing to take certain things instead of creating our own NBA. It would only take the top 10 players that are black to say we're going to do our own thing. But we are used to being in a paradigm of proximity to power without holding power.
I don't think that there won't ever be a black NBA.
We don't have the mindset.
I think not only having the mindset, I think there's a level of fear. You go back to COINTELPRO.
Yeah.
We even go back to slavery days, and we look at somebody. When you look at Kyrie, and you look at certain people, and they ostracize that person in public. He did the same thing in slavery days. When you have a buck, or you have somebody who bucks the system, we are going to embarrass you, beat you, humiliate you, rape you in front of all the other slaves. Not only is it going to break you, but it's going to break everybody else from even thinking about doing what you did.
And it may have had a limited impact, but we still here, bro. And we still here because somebody had enough foresight, sacrifice, and internal fortitude to say, I am going to fight for the people that come after me. And the perfect example of what I mean about access to power and understanding power, when those brothers at the University of Missouri said they were not going to play that football game unless this particular person got fired, millions of dollars at stake. They seized the opportunity with the privilege that they had as athletes to assert their power. And guess what happened? They fired that person because these young brothers understood the power that they had in the moment. It only takes a moment. It only takes a little piece of lightning to create a storm. But that's what I'm saying about making a sacrifice for the people that come after you and really understanding power.
And I say this for Kanye. I say this for Kyrie. I say this for every black man, every black woman, every white man, white woman, any race, religion, creed, sexual orientation. I'm okay with you standing up for what you believe in. We live in a country where it is your right to be who you want to be. All right? That is your right, and you have the right to be and believe who you want to be. You don't have a right. Kyrie's situation is different from Kanye's, because I think that Kanye, I think he's
an anti-black protagonist.
Right. He offends people.
Totally different.
And and you never know where he believes. I just think a lot of his points are kind of like have a self-righteous, not even a self-hate, but a self-righteousness, or kind of like his motives are pushed and predicated on what he. I think Kanye is different. I mean, I think Kyrie is different. I think everybody has the right to believe, to vote, and however they want to vote. I just don't believe in, like, if you're gonna stand by it, stand by it. That's okay. That's your thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean I have to agree with it. Like, if you saying you a Christian and you evangelical and you don't, and your whole thing is pro-choice, then all right, this either sit this one out, but don't just go and vote for somebody who's totally contradicts everything you said you stand for. Like, you know what I mean? I believe if you saying you Christian and you evangelical, then you should then follow the teachings of Jesus Christ and treat people better. Don't just treat them better based on like their color or whatever, and like this whole racist and like oppressive ass behavior, and you hide behind, you know, this religion, because basically what you telling everybody else is this religion is for nobody but you. So I think that, you know, so in everything, stand by your beliefs. That Kyrie, you know, it's not ever cool. We said this last episode. It's never cool to offend other people based on your beliefs. They're your beliefs. Mm-hmm. So you shouldn't go out and kill or do anything to anybody else based on your beliefs. Those are your beliefs. Don't tell me what's wrong with something else. Tell me what's right with you and what's right with yours. Right? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with anybody that does that. You know, so, but I also think that Kyrie and other brothers, if this is what you believe in, listen, man, don't be threatened by the money. Stand on it. They're going to respect it later. I mean, listen, man, we had, and I think we will have this brother on the show. He's just been traveling, but.
You don't have to say his name because I think we should surprise folks.
All right. Yeah. But he stood up for what he believed in. He was Kaepernick before Kaepernick.
I would say this. When Muhammad Ali was meek, he couldn't talk anymore. He lost his fire. He couldn't float like a butterfly, steam like a bee. That's when we embraced him. Muhammad Ali lost years of his earning potential. He lost years of his life because he did not want to fight a war that he did not believe in, and that his religious beliefs were supposed to be protected in America, and we banished this man, right? People forget he was considered one of the biggest threats to American society by standing on that, right? It was only until he could not speak with that same fire, that same passion, that same, you know, just pure, unadulterated black joy. When he could no longer do that, that's when he was accepted. So every generation, whether it's a Harriet Tubman, you know what I'm saying, whether it's a Muhammad Ali, whether it's a Shirley Chisholm, you know what I'm saying, she dealt with sexism before Stacey Abrams. Every generation has truth tellers that are only appreciated in death.
And with that being said, this has been the Reclamation Point podcast.
Just breathe, brother.
So much going on, man. But with everything, we want to say, I want to say, you know, thank you to Brother Ed for, you know, his insights, and I want to thank you for everybody who continues to support the Reclamation Point podcast. Thank you to U42 Studios, producer Yasmin, Dave,
everybody.
Thank you for my partner Gerard, Legacy History Pride sweatshirt. Thank you for good looking out, my brother. But hey, we'll see you next week, man. We out. we gotta take a breath. We gotta breathe. We gotta release. But follow us on our platforms, Instagram, Reclamation Point Podcast, Moetown Lee, MOETOWNLEE.
At Dr. Ed Garnes on all platforms, and we'll see you on the other side of a well-deserved break.
Right. All right.